died on the cross, shows that he cannot be an agent. He went as far as to invite Queen Victoria to Islam. So again, this shows that they're not going to part someone who is going to try and invite their own queen to come to Islam. The fact of the matter is, Britain, especially in those days, but even so up to today, has given certain rights. And he expressed that this is good rights, it's good freedom. You have freedom to practice your faith. You have freedom of speech and so on and so forth. These freedoms we find even in this country to this day. And the fact is there's unfortunately certain Muslim countries like Pakistan and things like that that don't give this particular freedom. So this was what he was praising. And this is something which we should recognize. If there is any good qualities in anybody, you should recognize that and praise that. And so this is what he did. He praised those good qualities and that freedom to practice the faith, which unfortunately I say is being deprived by some countries.
It is ironic. So what Hazrat promised Messiah actually focused on was the system of governance. That here was a good example of good governance in effect. And his primary mission as the promised Messiah, as set out in all the Holy Scriptures, but certainly in the Quran, that when the promised Messiah would come, he would seek to, if you like, rebuke and rebuff those presentations from the Christian missionaries around India, as was at that time, about, if you like, that Jesus is still alive and that the cross would be destroyed. But this was done through argument. I think there's this misconception that other Muslims sometimes have, that somehow the Messiah would arrive and would go round breaking the cross, and not least because women across the world in the Christian faith actually have those tied around their necks. So it seems a rather strange sort of proposition for the Messiah.
Certainly so. I mean, obviously, if we take it literally, you're going to get in all sorts of trouble.
Of course.
Anybody can build a cross, and this is not the purpose of a prophet, that he comes just for these minor things of going around breaking crosses or running after pigs and killing pigs. This is symbolic of Christianity. So it means that the Holy Prophet Muhammad prophesied that when Jesus would come, he would break the cross, he would kill the swine. It means that he would destroy the tenets of Christianity, as of the Christianity of today, which is not the Christianity which was preached by Jesus Christ. Of course, Jesus Christ, ﷺ, we have great respect for.
Indeed.
But that's the message that he gave to the early Jewish Christians as they became. So these false teachings that's been allude to Jesus Christ, this is what he broke. And one of the ones was, of course, this supposed death. And it's quite clear in the Bible and in the Holy Quran that Jesus did not die on the cross. And now evidences keep coming all the time to prove this. So he started this, and this was, in fact, as you said, his true mission. So, like I say, to say that he's planted by the British, it's very foolish of the British, and the British are not foolish.
Indeed. Azar, if I could come to you in the context, because here the questioner has raised the issue of that this was, if you like, the allegation is substantiated. Tahir Sahib's already said it would be ironic if it's to refute your own arguments. But nevertheless, that this wouldn't have flourished under Muslim rule, as it did, you know, the concept, the truth, as we believe, the renaissance of Islam, which is Ahmadiyya, would not have flourished under Muslim rule, and it was allowed to flourish under British rule. It seems a strange suggestion, really, doesn't it?
It is not only a strange suggestion, you would say it is almost a counterproductive argument against yourself, because what you're saying is, here's a non-Muslim government that has a greater sense of freedom and liberty for its subjects, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslims, to practice and profess their faith, that we must go to a non-Muslim country to find such freedoms and such rights, basic civil rights, which the Holy Prophet Muhammad launched the jihad in Islam for this same purpose. The Quran quotes in Surah Al-Hajj, the reason he went to jihad was to protect churches and synagogues and temples and lastly masjids from being destroyed, meaning the right of people to practice and profess their faith. Not for any so-called built-up reason to offend others by saying either you accept faith at the point of sword or you must accept death, because those are your only two options, meaning that there's no rights in this land unless you are a Muslim. That has been an argument that has plagued the minds of Western people for centuries, that this seems to be the attitude of Muslim world. Now for a Muslim to turn around and say exactly so. If he was in a Muslim land, he wouldn't have no rights. He would have had to have been a Muslim, else his faith, be it Muslim or any otherwise, could not have flourished there. is a direct argument against the purpose of Prophet Muhammad and the very teachings of Islam. And I also take offense to the fact that in this whole argument, that we as a subject of a non-Muslim nation should appreciate them giving us rights that Muslims or any non-Muslim should have in a country, is somehow being duplicitous, being hypocritical. Whereas the Prophet Muhammad taught us to say, Man lam yashkur nas, whoever does not appreciate and show gratitude to the people, lam yashkur Allah, they have failed to show gratitude to Allah. All of these other Muslim groups who were present at the time when they are attacking that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salam of Qadian has said words in praise of Queen Victoria, were similarly saying words and statements even more in praise and more in support of this same queen. And the record is there. I mean, I don't have the quotes in front of me. You can go and look at the scholars and the Muslim leaders of that time, what they were saying. Some of them were going to the extent of saying that our blood is for the queen, we will die for you, we'll send our people to war for you, we're doing all these things. And these were not Ahmadis. These were the leaders of other groups who were present at the same time. So if the attack, this condemnation is on us for saying these things, as for Hazrat Ahmad alayhi salam saying these things, then at least be just and say all of the Muslims should be condemned, for they were saying similar things. And this is what is really quite interesting about this argument.
It is the poignancy of the message. I mean, here we have, and maybe in the questionnaire, Rashid Saab, in putting the question that you have, and indeed it came from a non-Ahmadi Muslim friend of ours. Nevertheless, I think the beauty of the Promised Messiah's message was the potency of his argument, which was done under pure Islamic foundation. It was breaking the cross-through argument and purposeful, sensible, logical, Quranic or indeed biblical based arguments. But at the same time, he didn't take away from the fact that the idea of good governance, the principle of good governance, was something reflective from the British. I think that was a great way of demonstrating in itself the truth of the person that was the Promised Messiah.
As has been said, I mean, this is the same qualities that you always appreciate, anything that is good. So wherever that good comes from, you can't say, I'm only going to appreciate Muslim things or Islamic things. Any good that you see, you should appreciate that. And this is what we're taught in the Holy Quran, and this is what we should be practicing. So like I say, I mean, alhamdulillah, in these days, we are living in this country. They give us the right to build mosques. They give us the right to practice our faith, even go out in the streets if we want to, and spread the message of Islam. This is something which we should appreciate. It is freedom. And this is the rights which was given to us by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And this is something which we should be practicing, and we want to see practiced in Muslim countries. This is what the questioner should be saying, that why aren't these same rights being practiced in Pakistan or other countries like that? Whether it is Ahmadis, whether it's Christians or whoever it is, they've been deprived of their rights. And that should not be from a Muslim country.
Indeed. I mean, Manusab, if I could come to you, I mean, this question raises, and I think it's an important principle as well, Ahmadi Muslims, wherever they are in the world, you know, we have others out from the United States, you know, whilst my ancestry may be Indian or Pakistani, you know, I'm sure friends of mine would say I'm passionately British. One of the things that we are very clear of as an Ahmadi Muslim community is that within the parameters of the laws, the freedoms that are provided, of course we are loyal citizens, but that doesn't preclude us from being questioning or indeed raising criticisms where we feel policies are unjust. Is that not true of every Ahmadi, wherever they are in the world?
Certainly, that is the case. Just wanted to add regarding the background, the historical background of the Prophet ﷺ and the persecution that Muslims in the subcontinent faced. It's something that one of the reasons that the Prophet ﷺ thanked the British for at least lifting that massacre and atrocities that were committed against the Muslims. And this is a very basic thing that any Muslim should do. هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Somebody who does you a favor, you should just do the same. And the British were demonstrating an Islamic injunction, where that giving to the Muslims in the Holy Quran, وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فَاحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. If you ever happen to rule among people, you should rule with justice.